Hey everyone, this is another video I'm doing under my I Could Be Wrong, but I Could Be Right series. I've done two videos so far, and kind of I just want to explain how certain things have entered into the hobby of action figure collecting and movies, comics, culture in general, in an effort to kind of help folks understand some things. I don't usually take a stance of, is this actually wrong or wrong? Because what do I know? Like I said, I have my opinions based on my experiences and what I've seen, what I've read, and what I've learned. So, so one of the things since I started doing YouTube is I'm small channel, small subscriber base. So I fly under the radar of a lot of things. I spend most of my time watching other people's content and making snarky comments in the chat session, and up until now that's been pretty good. But last night I had my first interaction with somebody that really was coming after me for something I said, um, and and what it was is I was watching last night's Figure It Out with Mikey and Zakina, and they had a guest on there, and they were talking about the some of the Yojo June releases with that, and then they were making it was really entertaining, show, good. And so I'm in there, and I'm making my comments, and one of the figures that came up, they came up with this. Let me add this here was the Mistress Armada figure, which for those who don't know, Mistress Armada was a character from the Devil's Due run of comics, where they basically in the Devil's Due they picked up GI Joe where it left off with Hama in 155 after Marvel canceled it. And so what they did is the idea was that this was that GI Joe was closed down in issue 155. Several years later, Cobra comes back and GI Joe relaunches. I thought it was a fantastic run with that. A lot of good, so a lot of interesting characters. And one of the newer characters was Mistress Armada, who was with Destro. And so, of course, with all the things coming out, this one was revealed, and it's a good figure. I like it. I'm a big Destro fan, and also I'm a big Iron Grenadiers fan. So one, it was good to see them come out with another Iron Grenadier figure, and also of a character that I didn't think we'd ever see from and actually, and I made the comment too that during the live stream is they made great efforts not to um, say that this came from the Devil's Due run of comics. This is the second character I think that's come from that run. The first one being Zanya. She was a Devil's Due character, and now this one. And they said, we had to make some changes to her, and of course, he changes the uniform because they wanted to fit the aesthetic that the Iron Grenadiers have in Class 5. I get that. And they talk about, they kind of hint there were some other changes. And one of the things that I noticed was that, this is the Class 5, again, beautiful Class 5, I'm going to get it. This is the way she looked in the comic. This is exactly the way she looked in the Devil's Due comic. And one of the things I noticed that that the classified figure, the skin tone looks a little bit lighter than how she was portrayed in the comic. And so I made a comment about that. That's something that we've seen before in the past, and it's not usually that big of a deal. I kind of made a comment, kind of like a jab to Hasbro and kind of their ways of trying to do things to appease certain crowds of folks. And it's also been kind of one of these things that in uh, in culture and media that a lot of times that they have this two opinions. One is that they need more representation in it, but that everybody hates representation. So a lot of times, what happens, especially when it comes to black characters, they will take one and they will give them lighter skin tones because they think that will be acceptable to the folks that hate it out there. This is why you get Holly Berry, which is amazing actress, beautiful woman, playing Storm when they launched X-Men, is they didn't think people would buy a beautiful black woman in that role of a darker skin tone. So I said some of that, and here's exactly what I said. This is what I said. And here's a side by side, and it's kind of a little bit hard to tell because you have a comic book. And I'm pulling this off the internet. So yeah, but you can see there's some differences in there. So I said in the comments that they also race swapped her. And here it is when they pulled up on screen, they talked about it with that. And I said that. And now in hindsight, I admit that that was probably not the correct term to use because they really didn't swap the race. It was just they gave her a lighter skin tone than what the character was. And so that came up there. And then what happened was, and I said, it's still a cool figure. I'm an Iron Grenadier Mark, so I'm still going to get it. Want the figure, love the figure. I would just prefer that if it was that it was closer to the comics version of it. So as we're going along, I put this in the chat. Nearly an hour into the chat, into the show, an hour later, I went back and I looked at it. So I made this comment. They brought it up on the screen, made the comment too. It passed. We're going on, and again, like I said, nearly an hour into it, this comment pops up from somebody named Dustin. Don't worry, whatever. I don't believe this is the name they use. This is kind of one of the things. Maybe I don't know if they were in there and they logged into an alt account but something just didn't seem right about this. Like I said, it's an hour into this. This person finally wants to make a comment about my comment. And here's her comment. Armada wasn't race swapped. Okay, she's not. Yeah, like I said, again, my poor choice of words. She's a light-skinned black woman. She's black and British. What does that have to do with anything? Ever seen Beyonce Knowles? Okay, I mean, yeah, I've seen her. Not every black person is dark skinned. Yes, I know that. I kind of get what you're trying to say to me is that I think that all black people look alike. I know this. Okay, so that's the case we're making. So, all right, fine. I chalk this up as maybe there's a misunderstanding. I've always said that. Typing stuff on the internet, you lose a lot of context, you lose lots of tone. So I just reply back. It has been a while since I've read the DD run, Devil's Due run. I remember her being darker and more African looking. I said they do have dark skinned black people in Britain though. Because I kind of feel that was the point he's making, that because she's somehow British, that that's what you have in Britain. It's like, no, Britain has all different skin tones. So that's kind of just me making it. Okay, so here was the reply to that. Ever seen Ethiopian, Habeshian, or East African people? Thin nose, full lips, copper skin, natural wavy hair. Not all black people have Bantu features. So here's what's happening here. Whoever this person is, what they're trying to do is they're trying to communicate to me that they are educated. That's that they're smart. I'm not. Me smart, you dumb. Because haven't you ever seen Ethiopians? Yes. Habesians, I'm not. I'll admit I'm not familiar with that term. East African people, yes. I've known East African people, friends with East African people. Work with them is all good. Not all people have Bantu features. Yes, I know that. Dustin, don't worry. So this is what they're trying to. What he's trying to do. He's trying to establish that, and I'm just using he. I don't know who this is. Like I said, I don't think this is their real name, or either. I think it's one of their alt accounts. They're trying to basically say that I'm stupid, and then therefore I should automatically listen to what they have to say and admit that because they're way smarter than me. So moving on, my reply is, I just looked it up. I did as I was waiting for after he posted that. I went and looked up. I pulled that picture I showed. And I said, I just looked it up, and from the Devil's Due run, she is darker. Maybe race wasn't the correct word to use, and it wasn't. I mean, we're talking about tones of skin, not race of people. Again, you're typing fast in the chats here, so yeah. So okay, I'm basically meaning that yeah, I'll take the responsibility for your confusion, Dustin. Um, Maybe race wasn't the correct word to use, but the Hasbro render is definitely a lighter skin tone. And that's all I'm saying, is that it's a lighter skin tone based on how the character used to look. So here's the reply. Armada represents blacks that look like Jason Tatum, Vanessa Williams, Doug Christie, Beyonce. I get it, you're a Beyonce fan. Okay. Mariah Carey, Stacey Dash, Chili from TLC. What about T-Boz and Left Eye? They weren't dark. They were all kind of the same skin tone. You left out Cheryl James from Salt and Pepper. So see, I can name people too. Okay. Um, uh, East African phenotypes. You're you're making this. You're trying to beat me down with a point. And that's the thing is I want you to clarify what was the point that you're trying to make. I can make lists too. You can make lists. So my reply was, what are you wanting me to say? Are you trying to make me say that I'm a racist? Are you trying to make me say that I'm ignorant? What is it? I said, I think she should look more like the original design of the character. Why are you making such a big deal of this? And that's my question. Is like, this is odd because I'm advocating for the character for a for a black character, and I'm not using African American because she's a British character, right? Is her origin, but this character, I'm advocating that it should look just like the character. Usually, what this is called when somebody takes a minority character and changes their skin tone to a lighter one, they call that whitewashing. And I don't like it. So I'm not understanding what's going on. So why is this such a big deal to you that that I got this wrong? That I wanted the character to be darker than what the render showed. And then here's what the next reply was. Because light skinned and mixed race blacks are never, capital letters, never represented in figure form. Dark skinned people are the only ones represented. This is the point. And I made this in my first video. I talked about this is that there's a need, there seems to be a need for people to, in their entertainments and their medias, to only see themselves in that. And they feel like that if they don't see themselves, there's somehow less of this. And this is what this person, Dustin, don't worry. This is the point they're trying to make, is they feel that when it comes to representation, it's not good enough that a minority is represented in an action figure line, but the right type and shade of minority has to be represented in that line. So this is the crux of the argument. But there's something deeper here. So I go, okay, I still think she should look more like the character. That is my preference. I'm still getting it because I'm a Destro IG fan. I'm still getting the figure. I still want the figure. I like the figure. Okay. Would I like it to look more in line with how the character was in the comic? Absolutely. Do other people want it differently? Absolutely. That's fine. That's just me. I want characters to look like more like the characters in the media that they originated from. Okay. I know that's difficult now. So now here we get to the main point of this person's issue. Again, remember, I'm arguing for more representation in this, but he's saying that a certain subset of a minority group has too much representation in the media. And here it goes. Fridge, Doc, Sherlock, Iceberg, Big Lob, Carla Greer, Heavy Duty, are all dark skinned. So again, it's one thing you're listing off things because you're trying to impress me with your knowledge of G.I. Joe. So I get that. You're pulling characters that are from the IDW run as well, cartoon. You mentioned Fridge. Fridge was based on a real person, so you're kind of locked into that. But you're saying that's an example of overrepresentation of dark-skinned people. Armada is the first lights. Oh, you left out Jody Craig, Shooter. Oh man, dude. All right, so maybe you're not as on top of things I thought there, Dustin. But Armada is the first light-skinned black character to represent those of us that look like her. And this is the crux of it. Whoever this person is insecure. They think that if there's not a character that looks like them, that therefore they are somehow less than. They are seeking validation from fictional characters. They are seeking that validation not in, does a character represent ideals I want to aspire to? Does characters represent a moral code that I wish I could follow? Does a character represent somebody that overcomes things? No, they have to match the tone of my skin in order for this to be a valid character. And what we will do is we will change characters for that reason. Again, it's a generational thing that's happened. I don't say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's the way it is. The way it is now is people no longer want to have characters to aspire to. They want characters that are just like them, and that's what this person is that for some reason they think that there's not enough representation of their skin tone. Again, it's not enough that there's a minority representation, that there has to be now in the stack of representation there's substacks, and this substack that this person feels they belong to, they don't think there's enough representation in that, and I'm the bad guy for making the comment that I would like the character to look like how they looked in the comics. I would like when M. Night Shyamalan did that horrible Avatar, the Last Airbender movie. I did not like the casting choices because I wanted those characters to represent the characters the way they were in the cartoon. And then I don't think changing the Ancient One in the MCU into a white Scottish woman was a good idea. That's kind of things is I like the characters as they are. So, but this person, their entire thing, that something I said an hour earlier, that took them enough time to get into this new account, or did they just sit there and they saw that and they just stewed for an hour before crafting a response to my question? To my comment. So here's what I said. Hey, if you need that, then that is cool, man. If that's what you want and you feel you need that, then listen, more power to you. I'm not going to take that away from you. I'm not going to, belittle. I am poking fun of it now in this video because I don't think this is your real name, and so this is kind of, I think this is just some kind of you blew out of proportion. But listen, if you truly feel that way, Dustin, don't worry, dude. Go ahead, man. This is, I'm not going to take that away from you, and I can't take that away from you. My flippant comment does not invalidate your entire worldview. So I said, hey, if you need that, then that is cool. I don't need representation in my figures. And I say that because, another come back and go, but you're a white guy. Of course there's figures out there. And here's what I don't need. Mainly because nobody wants a morbidly obese guy in his mid-50s as an action figure. Remember when body image was a thing in our media? That's kind of all gone away since the Miracle Shot came out. But listen, I said I don't sit there and I don't go, man. Now I wish the Justice League would get a middle-aged fat white guy as a hero that can do super awesome stuff. You know, I know. Oh, this would be fun. Maybe we could get Bobby Vala to do an extra figure of me. Big fat white guy. I'm sure that would be his lowest selling figure ever. Maybe a headcanon extra figure would be the figure that finally tanks his company. I would sell fewer. I bet he would sell fewer figures of me than he ever did of Duster. Okay, but so that's not what I look for in my characters. But that's me. So thinking that would be the end of it. Listen, I validated your opinion, dude. That's cool. Hey, for me, I don't need it because I don't care to see me represented in the media. Of course, this wasn't it. So here's his comeback. Okay, then, so they can make Black Panther and Storm White then, and you would be okay with it. Rolling laughing faces. This is interesting because what this was, again, remember, my original thing was I was advocating that the character should be black and that the skin tone should be darker to match the original character. I was advocating that Hasbro change the character to a lighter skinned character. So how in the world, Dustin, don't worry, did you arrive at the point of, okay, then, so they can make Black Panther and Storm white and you would be okay with that? Why would I be okay with that? What you wanted me to do is you didn't want to come out and call me, but you wanted me to expose myself as a racist, that I was wanting these characters to be swapped. Racism would have been her being originally a light-skinned character, no, her being black, and then them making her a white person. That's what would have been, if I had been advocating for that, that would have been racist. So that's the argument you're making, is that, okay, then, so you can make Black Panther and Storm white and they would be okay with it. You're off the rails, dude. That's what it was. You didn't get what you wanted out of me. So now you're trying to pin me into a corner to admit that. And so my reply was just this. Nope, I would not. If they made Black Panther Chinese or Storm made blonde Norwegian, I would be just as critical. And I would, because those characters were not created that way. And it would completely destroy years of character development, decades of character development, if they did it that way with that. So, of course, I wouldn't be that way. And that's kind of where it ended, mainly because I think they left the chat at that point because I was checking to see if they were still in there, and they weren't. More than likely, because of that type of mentality, they always want the last word. So they probably got out completely at that point, so they didn't see my response. That way they can feel like they made their point and left. But it was just it was my first interaction like that. With that kind of thing, and it was just kind of weird and odd to have somebody go on me that way, especially how it all led up to that. But that's the point. Folks, we've got to start thinking critically and not being stop taking things so personally with this stuff. Like I said, if you're looking for an action figure to validate you, I mean, and I get it. Listen, I know for a fact in that community, light-skinned black people for a long time are still not kind of treated well by other folks on both sides of it. I've heard the slurs coming not from white people but from black people towards mixed race and those with lighter skin tones of that. So I get that. If that was your experience, man, I feel bad for you because it does suck. I get that. I have empathy and sympathy for you, but to come after me in the chat of a fun show, trying to paint me as a racist is just really out of bounds with that. But again, like I said, this is part of my I could be wrong, I could be right. I could be wrong. I could also be right. So for if you stumble across this video, let me know what you think. No, that's I could be off base. I don't know with that. And also should and I use the term morbidly obese because that's what my doctor uses. So I get that, but should I be represented in an action figure line? Should we start a petition to have Bobby Valla make an extras Derek figure, an extra hair cannon figure, so that all my fellow fat guys can feel represented and loved and validated in action figure form. So just let me know. And this like I said, this is odd. This is fun. Never had this happen before. I'm sure somebody can also watch all this and pick through it and pick and choose things and make me look like a horrible human being. But that's just it. That's all I got for this. Just weird things. So just let me know what you think.